Welcome back to the channel, episode 5 of the John Morgan Vindicator build. So I just got done spraying the lower color, lightened it up a little bit compared to what I had before, so I think it looked pretty good. A lot of pictures I've been looking at are kind of conflicting. Lower color seems almost white in some pictures it seems more gray. So anyways, this was the original color that I'd purchased, and it's a little bit lighter, and I can also lighten it up a little bit with some airbrushing and oversprays and stuff. Here's your first look at the bomb sling that Scott made. Had to put that on to get it color matched, but yeah, so we're gonna mix up some of the blue gray and paint these outer wing panels here, and then we'll let it dry and we'll flip it over and keep on cruising. It's looking okay. I mean, like I've said a number of times before, it's a super lightweight model. I mean, I could fight bodywork forever and add a couple of pounds and make it look a little better, but you got to kind of know when to cut your losses as far as adding weight and bodywork and all that stuff. So I think it's going to look pretty good when it's finished. So anywho, let's get this other color mixed up. Just in case you guys are curious, this is the paint that I'm using. So it's basically bare house paint, flat. So the color I have for the top is actually a little bit too dark as well. So I'm going to mix some of the gray into it, lighten it up just a little bit. So, and if you watch my channel, or if you see my posts on Facebook or RC groups or anything, you know that I've finished this F18, and I've been meaning to do a video on it, and it's all finished. So at some point I'll get a video, but for now that's your only look. And then I finished, well, I mostly finished my T33. I still have to do the cockpit. My dad 3D printed a bunch of stuff for me. One thing though, I actually made a bunch of room in my garage. So I moved the T38 over, moved a bunch of airplanes around, moved everything over. So anywho, let's get back to the Vindicator. Okay, so we have the base colors on. Now it does look more blue on camera than it does in person. Not sure what that's all about, but I think I got the color pretty close. And again, this is the base color, so there's going to be some weathering and some different shades being used to simulate fading and dirt and stuff like that. So take it with a grain of salt. But like I said, I think the color looks pretty good in person. Let me pull it out in the sun. It's kind of like cloudy today too, so it changes things a little bit. But yeah, it's looking pretty good. I think once it's all weathered up and panel lines and all that stuff, it's gonna look pretty sweet. So still, I've been mixing paint, trying to get the color right. The color I had originally was a little too dark, so I added some gray to it. I think it's pretty close, honestly. Like I said, in real life, it's less blue, but it should have a pretty decent amount of blue in it as well. So, anywho, there's solid sunlight, clouds cleared away. So, yeah, it looks pretty good. So let's keep on going here. Probably gonna do panel lines next, and then lay out all the masking for the stars and the circles and the number 2s in the side. I'm gonna paint them all by hand. I gotta paint the canopies, and then we'll start weathering. Okay, so it might be hard to pick up on film or on video, but what I've been trying to do is get rid of some of the blue hue and also simulate some fading. So I've taken some gray, and you can kind of see it in this area here, from about here up, and like on the stabs, if you compare this blue with this blue. So I'm trying to create some fading effect by doing a gray base mixed with some of the blue color and thinned it way out so it's real thin. Trying to give like a splotchy slash faded look. And I don't know how much it's going to really show up on video, because a lot of times the cameras tend to bleach out some of that effect, but plus the lighting right now. Anywho, trying to give it some depth some varied shades and stuff like that. So, anywho, I was talking to Scott. We're gonna try and darken up the cockpit area again. And I talked about this in a previous video, but apparently the real ones were painted the same color as the airplane on the inside. At least the one in the Navy Museum is painted that way, not interior green or anything. And if the National Navy, Navy Museum painted that way, they probably did some research. So it's hard to find information on stuff like that. There's not very good pictures, and I'm sure every airplane was different, at least to some extent. So anyways, we're going to work on doing some more fading here, and then probably get the stars stuff laid out next. And then after that will be panel lines and more weathering, etc. Okay, so maybe out here in well, it's cloudy today, but out here in the natural light, maybe you can pick up some of the real faint. You see like through here, some of this type stuff, and like a vertical surface, or a horizontal surface would be more faded. So like the top of this, you can see that. So I don't know how much is going to show up, but, and again, it looks less blue in real life. It looks more gray, but I think that's pretty good. It kind of accentuates the natural light that's on the vertical surfaces, but gives us some depth. So I think the color is actually pretty close. See if you can tell the difference. Probably not the current light. All right, so that's where we're at. Just doing some weathering, and I got the canopies painted. I know I've said it a million times, but without Scott's help, this would have never gotten finished. So Scott also remade the canopies, and these are gorgeous parts, very smooth. And he even masked them for me. So Scott did just so many hours worth of work. He made hubcaps for the wheels, just tons and tons of work. So there's multiple pieces. There's a forward windscreen, and then the canopy. Then the rear has 2 sections of glass. Actually, the real one had 3, but we're not doing that. You haven't seen this yet. So Scott made this stuff. He made this is a bomb. It's gonna mount to the sling, held on with magnets, obviously, because Scott is the magnet master. Just so many hours of work that Scott put into this thing. Don't worry. This is the original scoop that John made. Scott made a new scoop for it too, because this one's got some weird shapes to it. And there's spare parts. There's a hook in here that Scott made. I'll show you the other cool stuff once we get it all on, but yeah, it's kind of cloudy today. But I think it's coming along pretty good. Alright, so I've done some darker tones. Still haven't got to the stars, obviously. But I was looking at the pictures and I noticed that the real one had... So it has a number 2 right here, but the previous full number was right here, and they sprayed over it. So I just did some... You can really see the fading that I did up here now on these horizontal surfaces. So I started doing some darker hues, and Scott and I talked, and thought it'd be better if we darkened up the cockpit a little bit. So I did like a black wash, but we're still drying, so I think it looks a little bit better that way. But you can start to see I did just kind of like some random dark areas. And again, we're still really far from being done, but just kind of do one little layer at a time of different colors, different fading. And once you do the panel lines and stuff, I think it's really going to start looking cool. So I guess now I really will get all these masked up, and then I got to spray the tail. So on the real one, on the original paint job, these were red and white stripes. Obviously that's not good for camouflage, so they painted over the rudder with what appears to be insignia blue. So they probably did it in the field, so they probably used whatever blue paint they had, which would have been for the stars and bars, or in this case, just the roundels and the stars. So I'm going to paint this rudder when I paint the stars. And then for whatever reason, they hand sprayed white over the vertical fin portion. So not sure why, but I'm going to do that when I do the stars. And then once I get all that done, then it'll just be panel lines, a little more weathering, some paint chipping. I got to detail the motor still, glue the canopies on, install the gun, the radio antenna, some stuff like that Scott's done. And this is the kind of stuff Scott does. It's crazy. So all this stuff's removable. It's all on magnets. There's a little hook here. There's a hook here. And a hook on top of the tail. That's for the aerial antenna. So basically it strings from here to the tail, but then it has like a wire that goes down to the fuselage to stabilize it. That's gonna look super cool. I'm pumped to see this thing finish. I think it's gonna look really sweet when it's all said and done. And I've said it a million times, but if Scott wasn't involved with this project, I don't think it would have gotten finished. And if it would have gotten finished, it wouldn't look nearly as good as it's gonna look. So huge thank you to Scott. The guy is just awesome. Anywho, enough kissing Scott's butt. Let's get back to painting this airplane. All right, so when in doubt, use your wife's pots to make outlines. So I found a couple of bowls that are just about the right size for the stars and roundels, and traced them out. Now I'm going to mask them. I'll mask off the area, and then I'll spray these insignia blue, and then I'll mask off for the stars and paint those white. Good to go. Painted on markings. Okay, so here's where we're at. I got all the roundels masked off, got them sprayed with insignia blue, and as you can see here, I've also sprayed the rudder like we talked about earlier. That's just a educated guess on my part based on the picture that I have of the real one. It's about the same darkness as the roundel, so that's the paint they probably would have had in the field, and that's where they did it. They didn't do it in the factory, so they probably used what they had, and insignia blue is probably one of the only colors they had to paint the airplane with to cover up the red and white stripes. So anyways, it looks darker in person than it does in the video. I don't know what the deal is with the camera, but the colors aren't exactly the same. So anyways, let that dry. I got the wings masked off over here. Show you guys what that looks like. These things are going to be huge. Top and bottom, left and right. Not standard markings compared to the rest of the airplanes that were in the squadron, or most of the rest of them, but that's where we're at. So I'm going to, I made some stars. I'm going to use those as templates and trace them out, then tape those off once this blue is dry. So let's get these wings shot and we'll keep on cruising. Alright, so I got the start taping off the stars. Got them all masked up on this wing, so I'm going to go ahead and shoot these and then start masking off the rest of this stuff. Alright, so I got the wings done, and I got the fuselage masked up here, and we're getting ready to shoot some more white. So far it's looking pretty sweet. Nothing like painted on markings. Alright guys, so this is where we're at. This is where I'm going to end the video tonight. Basically all the painting is done now. I'm trying to give you guys, not all the shading shows up on camera. Some of it does. The color is also a little bit different than it is in real life, but in any case, the canopies are not glued on yet. I just unmasked them and set them on there because I had to see how it looked. You can see I painted some black on the floor in here and darkened up some of the shades of gray blue in here just to give it some depth. Again, here's a close-up of the canopies that Scott made. Focus. They are just incredible. Scott did an awesome job. He masked these for me, and no doubt, like he said, it took him 3 or 4 hours to mask all of that. So it looks really good. I'm super pleased with how this turned out. There we go. Get the color a little closer. That's about how it looks in real life. So to explain the paint job a little bit, I explained a little bit before what's going on here. This was something done in the field according to the documentation. They painted over the red and white stripes in the rudder, and then for whatever reason they sprayed white over the fin area, so don't ask me why. And if you look at closely at the pictures of the real one, there's a number that comes before the 2, and they covered it over probably to help with camouflage, make it less obvious. So they used what looked like fresh blue-gray to cover over those numbers and letters right there. So I did that. Got the wing walks on it. I gotta do panel lines, and you can see, actually on video it shows it pretty well, the fading that I did up on top. So I lightened it up quite a bit on the horizontal surfaces. Kind of like a little bit in the wing, just splotchy, and then you can see it pretty good here on the cowling, how it's lighter up on top. So anyways, I'm really happy with how this is turning out. This paint job hides a lot, thankfully. The bodywork on this airplane is not all that spectacular, especially with the waviness and the foam and everything else on the fuselage and the wing and everything else. So, but on camera, yeah, it looks like $1 million. So it looks great in person too. You know, it's funny because I really didn't know anything about this airplane before I got this model from John. And let's spin around so we can get some light in the motor here. So I need to do some dry brushing on a bunch of this stuff, but I darken it up. It looks really cool. That motor just, it fits perfect in here. I mean, I can't believe just how good that fits. So it's looking really sweet. I'm super happy with it. Well, like I was saying, I really didn't know anything about this airplane at all. I mean, I almost don't even know if I even ever saw one or noticed a picture of one before I got this airplane or before John started building it. I had no idea about the history of the airplane, and that's one of the neat things about modeling, scale modeling, is you get to learn about about the real airplane. So, and this particular paint scheme has a history behind it. Number 2 was White 2 is what they called it. White 2 was the squadron commander's airplane, and he led the squadron into battle during Midway, and most of them died. So anyways, there's a whole story behind that. But so it's just neat to replicate part of history, and I'm really happy with how it's turning out. So all that's left to do now, well, I say all that's left, there's quite a few things left to do still, but the major portions are done. I still have to do all the panel lines, especially where the fabric would be. Trying to replicate that kind of look of the fabric will be interesting. But I got to do panel lines, got to do some weathering, got to install the exhaust and the sight, got to glue the windows in, just little stuff like that. Got to glue the tail wheel on. Need to get the hubcaps on the tires and get the main gear doors hooked up. Just lots of little stuff now, and we still have a week to go, so I'm definitely looking good on the schedule as far as getting this thing done. I mean, as it sits right now, it's pretty much there. If I had to just slap the gear in and glue the canopies on it, we could go fly it and it would look amazing. But so it should be finished, no problem. I still have tomorrow. Kids have soccer, but should be able to get the afternoon to work on it, and I'll be up tonight, I'm sure, working on it some more. So we'll get on the video this thing after some more details are done. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions about the weathering, and I wish I could film this while I'm doing some of this stuff so I could walk you through it. But basically, you just and in this particular case, in this airplane, seeing as how it was used in the Pacific, based off of an island, there's a lot of opportunity for weathering and different paint techniques. And like this, how it looks splotchy. That's because they painted this probably outside, and there's a bunch of guys, technicians and stuff. They just with a spray gun just sprayed it. I mean, it was done in a hurry, I'm sure, outside in the middle of a hot day, I'm sure, on an island. So that's why I didn't mask anything, because they wouldn't have masked it. They would have said, hey, paint that white, paint this blue. They just would have gone out there and just did it. They weren't going to mask it off. So that's why there's overspray. That's how it would have looked in real life. So, and this is actually, doing a paint job like this almost makes it easier to weather, because you can kind of just do random things. Like there's random light and dark spots all throughout the paint job, just to create the illusion of fading and dirtiness and all that stuff. And like when I spray the stars, you can kind of see it now. It's not perfect white. It's, you know, splotchy a little bit. Same with the blue. It's not a lot, but it's there. You can see it a little bit more on this one. That's kind of... But anyways, you get the idea. And I'll scuff these down. I'm going to do, after I get the panel lines on, I'm going to do some simulated paint chips, like around the window frames, especially around the cockpit where you would be getting in and out, around panels that come off of the cowling that would come off a lot. We'll get paint chips, front of the cowling, front of the wings and tails. So there's going to be a lot of little weathering and details that go into this. I don't want to get carried away because that's where things can get to be too much. I think right now, honestly, it looks pretty cool right now. So I don't want to go overboard, and that's where a lot of guys mess things up. They go too far, and then it doesn't look realistic anymore. So I think I have the fading pretty good, and it shows up really well in this lighting. So I think the fading looks about right. The color looks about right. So gotta do exhaust stains and stuff like that. But again, not to get too carried away, because sometimes people get too carried away with that stuff. So, but man, I'm excited to see this thing finished with all the little details like the bomb sling and the antenna mast and the... Wait till you guys see the pilot. It's, well, the pilot and the gunner. It's pretty amazing. And the gun back there, and just all the little details that Scott did for this model are just really going to make this thing come alive once it's all there. So anyways, I hope you guys are excited as I am about this airplane. And not only does it look cool, but geez, this thing is going to fly so good at this weight. It's going to be for sure below 10 pounds. I originally weighed it, and it was going to be around 7 without paint, 7.5. So I'm thinking with paint and everything else, it's going to be below 10 for sure, like John wanted originally. It's probably going to be between 8 and 9 pounds. I haven't weighed it since I painted it, so I put a little bit too much primer on it at first. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully it's not too bad. It doesn't feel too heavy, but anyways, I'm just jabbering on now. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you in episode 6, which will be coming out soon, and we'll see you next time.